In this video, we combine some of the most disturbing cave diving tragedies we've covered on this channel so far. From divers who got lost in the silt to divers who made a wrong turn and struggled to find their way out. If you enjoy watching these videos, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more exciting cave diving stories like these. Four friends who were undergraduate biology students went on a recreational dive to the Naro Cave, since it's considered the biggest marine cave in the Mediterranean Sea. While ascending, one of the divers got into trouble and plunged back into the depths. Would she be rescued in time? Naro Cave, known as Grotta di Nero in Italian, is an expansive submerged cavern located in the northwest region of Sardinia, within the enchanting Coral Riviera of Alghero, Italy. It derives its name from the mythological entity Nereus, often regarded as the venerable old man of the sea and the father of the Nereids. This remarkable site finds its place beneath the towering limestone cliffs of Capocaccia, positioned 328 feet to the north of the renowned Neptune's Grotto, and reaches a depth of 108 feet. Recognized as the largest marine cave within the Mediterranean Sea, Naro Cave captivates divers with its splendor. The cave has approximately 10 entrances, also arches and tunnels, offering divers a thrilling range of exploration opportunities. After descending, adventurers can navigate through extensive and spacious tunnels and encounter airy chambers and passageways. The cave walls are covered with vibrant colors, with the crimson allure of red coral and the sunny radiance of yellow leptosomnia. During the summer season, visibility within the cave can extend beyond an impressive 98 feet, allowing divers to immerse themselves in the captivating underwater world with great clarity. Maria Amato, who was in her second year of college, was studying marine biology. Her fascination with the underwater world began during her childhood due to her father's occupation as a fisherman. This exposure to the underwater realm ignited a deep-rooted curiosity within her, compelling her to explore the mysteries hidden beneath the ocean's surface. Maria's journey began at a young age when she acquired the skill of swimming as a fisherman's daughter. Fueling her passion even further, she eagerly enrolled in a beginner diving course before completing her high school education. This experience granted her the opportunity to delve into the depths of the sea, witnessing firsthand the captivating beauty and diversity of marine life. Motivated by her profound interest in the subject, Maria resolved to dedicate her academic pursuits in college to the field of marine biology. The field of marine biology involves the study of biological oceanography, as well as its closely related disciplines of chemical, physical, and geological oceanography. Its primary goal is to reveal the mysteries of marine organisms and gain a comprehensive understanding of their existence within the vast expanse of the ocean. During her college years, Maria met three individuals who shared her passion for the underwater world: Lucia, Enzo, and Aldo. Together, they embarked on numerous swimming and diving expeditions. After Lucia got certified in cave diving, the four friends decided to explore the Naro Cave, since it is considered the biggest marine cave in the Mediterranean Sea. Enzo had dived in the Naro Cave twice because he grew up in Alghero. During that particular weekend, Maria and her friends made all the necessary preparations and set off for the diving location. They planned to dive only 32 feet into the cave after the initial dive to the entrance, which is at a depth of 39 feet. They carefully packed their diving equipment, excited for the adventure that awaited them in the breathtaking underwater world of Naro Cave. The group divided themselves into two pairs. Maria paired up with Aldo, and Lucia teamed up with Enzo. They boarded a rubber boat and embarked on a short journey to reach the cave. The cave was conveniently located just 10 minutes away from one of the tourist centers. Two experienced divers accompanied them on the boat, serving as their guides, along with two other explorers who were also eager to explore the cave's wonders. Naro Cave boasted several entrances, but they opted for the one at Punta dell'Asino. This particular entrance led them to the front cave, which is considered the more accessible section, even for divers who weren't highly specialized in speleology but had some familiarity with diving. Meanwhile, the other explorers, under the guidance of one of the dive guides, dived separately. Led by Enzo, who was familiar with the path, the group of 4 friends dived beneath the Punta dell'Asino at Capo Caccia. As they descended, they found themselves entering the first area of the cave, known as Archi di Nero, or Nero's Arches. The sight that unfolded before their eyes was nothing short of breathtaking. The underwater passageways they encountered were adorned with vibrant colors, resembling submerged arches. The entire area was teeming with marine life, covered in a mesmerizing display of coelenterids, parazoanthus, and a remarkable amount of red coral. As they ventured further into the depths of Nero's Arches, the friends found themselves diving into a world of crystal-clear waters. Their marine biological senses helped them appreciate their exploration even better. They encountered scores of bonito fish gracefully gliding through the pristine waters. Upon closer inspection, they noticed that the rocky surfaces were home to undisturbed colonies of white and gilt-head sea brims, as well as groupers. As they swam through the archways, they witnessed a remarkable transition in the environment. The change was gradual, and with each passing moment, the underwater landscape transformed before their eyes. As they explored the nooks and crannies of the rocky terrain, the friends discovered a hidden world thriving within the crevices. Curious creatures such as moray eels, forkbeards, congers, and a variety of small shellfish found refuge in these rock crevices. The crevices served as a sanctuary, offering shelter and protection to these marine inhabitants. It was a delicate balance of life and survival, where each organism had carved out its niche within the underwater ecosystem. They observed the symbiotic relationships between different species, and marveled at the resilience and adaptability of the marine life they encountered. Once the friends had gone through Nero's Arches, they found themselves at the actual beginning of the renowned Naro Caves. These caves have 2 entrances, one at a depth of 39 feet and another at 108 feet. For this particular dive, they opted to explore the upper entrance at 39 feet. They dived further into the cave, allowing themselves to only get to 32 feet. This is because their plan did not involve delving deep into the innermost part of the cave during this dive. As the allotted time in the cave came to an end, they slowly made their way back toward the entrance at 39 feet. Maria and Aldo led the way, swimming ahead, while Lucia and Enzo followed closely behind. A few minutes into their ascent, they could easily see the bottom of the boat from a depth of 19 feet. As they continued, Aldo swam ahead, leaving Maria slightly behind. Nevertheless, they were near each other, and the boat was just within reach. Suddenly, Enzo's attention was drawn to a startling sight. He noticed a diver descending rapidly, plunging headfirst into the water with great speed. To his astonishment, he realized that it was Maria. Her body was perfectly straight, her arms motionless by her side. It was evident that something was wrong. Without hesitation, Enzo swiftly swam toward Maria, his primary focus now on ensuring her safety. Simultaneously, he called Lucia's attention by signaling the urgency of the situation. Enzo kept a vigilant eye on Maria, never losing sight of her as he moved toward her. He glanced back at Lucia, checking to confirm that she had received his signal and was following closely. To his relief, Lucia was right behind him. Finally, Enzo reached Maria as she descended back to a depth of 36 feet, near the entrance of the cave. As he approached Maria, Enzo noticed that her body was in a position where she was lying on her back. As he reached her, he observed that her regulator, which supplies air underwater, was not in her mouth. Additionally, her mask was partially filled with water, indicating difficulty in her ability to breathe comfortably. Alarmingly, Maria was unconscious. Reacting swiftly, Enzo attempted to wake Maria from her unconscious state. He grasped and shook her right arm, while carefully positioning her body into a seated position. Simultaneously, he brought her regulator close to her mouth, hoping that she would regain consciousness and instinctively gasp for air. He placed it against her lips, encouraging her to breathe. Approximately 30 seconds passed as Enzo persistently tried to revive Maria, but there was no response from her. He realized that they needed to ascend to the surface swiftly. Maria required immediate medical attention, and every second counted in such a critical situation. At that moment, Lucia was with him. He rapidly signaled thumbs up that they needed to get up fast. Enzo then grabbed Maria's BCD inflator and depressed the inflate button. He could feel air flowing through it, but she didn't instantly move. He kept the button depressed, and eventually she started moving. They began an emergency ascent. On the way, they met Aldo, who had noticed that Maria had gone missing. Confused, he had been searching for her. The three of them helped Maria up until they got to the surface. Upon reaching the surface, Enzo, Lucia, and Aldo immediately shouted that there was an emergency for those on the boat. Without wasting a moment, the group swiftly carried Maria onto the boat. Once on board, the seriousness of the situation became even more evident. CPR was initiated. Miraculously, after approximately 3 minutes of resuscitation efforts, Maria began to breathe on her own. However, she still needed further medical care. Within a few minutes, a Coast Guard helicopter swiftly arrived at the scene. Maria was carefully placed in a basket. She was lifted, suspended in the air, and flown to a nearby medical center. At the medical center, Maria was diagnosed with hypotension, or low blood pressure. This health condition is caused by insufficient circulation and oxygenation of the brain, and it often affects divers when emerging from the water. She was treated adequately, and her condition steadily improved. Her body responded positively to the treatment, and her vital signs stabilized. 3 days later, with her health significantly improved, Maria was discharged from the medical center. September 28, 2008 was a day never to be forgotten in the Doubs River in France. A seasoned cave diver set out to explore the Sordo Cave with two of his trusted friends who were also certified divers. However, an unexpected twist of fate would change everything on this dive. The Sordo Cave is a fascinating cave system that gives rise to the Doubs River, located just 1.2 miles away from Meaux, France. Even in chilly weather, the water inside this cave maintains a steady temperature of 42.8 degrees Fahrenheit all year round, keeping its crystal clear appearance. Despite the cold, the cave draws many visitors, becoming a beloved natural attraction in the region. Positioned at the base of Mount Réseau and Le Gros Roc, this cave system is frequently explored by adventurers. Sitting at an elevation of 3,068 feet above sea level, it serves as the origin point for the Doubs River. The Sordo Cave offers a unique and scenic experience for those who appreciate the wonders of nature. Thanks to the cave's springs, which react promptly to rainfall or snowmelt, you can conveniently track the current discharge online. It's worth noting that diving is restricted if the water level exceeds 21.2 cubic feet. To engage in diving, obtaining a permit is necessary, and you can easily apply for one at the mayor's office. Despite these monitoring measures, the cave maintains an air of mystery. Despite their daring pursuits, divers have not yet unveiled the origin of the waters that intricately navigate through the rocks in a complex network. Nature seems to guard this secret closely, adding an element of intrigue to this Sordo Cave. The quest to discover the true source of the Doubs has captivated adventurous cave divers for decades, making it an ongoing and thrilling exploration. John Manili, born in 1976, displayed an insatiable thirst for knowledge from an early age. He excelled academically at King's Manor School, absorbing information at a prodigious rate. In his youth, the Scouts provided him with solace, allowing him to embrace the outdoors and enjoy the camaraderie of his peers. As John transitioned into adulthood, he worked for various local companies until he discovered his true calling at Ricardo Engineering in Shoreham, England. His love for motorcycling and scuba diving took him on thrilling adventures, adding excitement to his life. But a significant turning point occurred in 1998 when John experienced a motorcycle accident that resulted in a broken back. This unfortunate incident left him with long-term injuries, but despite the challenges, John persevered. Initially trained locally, John Manili's journey into the world of diving took a significant turn when he joined Brighton's British Sub-Aqua Club. Swiftly earning a reputation as a reliable member, John's unquenchable thirst for exploration drove him to become a regular diver. Yet John's passion for diving knew no bounds. Seeking new challenges, he acquired a rebreather and pursued specialized training, propelling him into more adventurous diving groups and exploring deeper wrecks. This enhanced equipment and training allowed him to push the boundaries of his diving experience. With a rebreather in hand and the corresponding training, John expanded his horizons further by venturing into the captivating world of cave diving, both in the UK and France. On September 28, 2008, John Manili, John Valentin, and Charles Reed Henry set out to explore the Sordo Cave. Their plan was for each of them to independently dive and navigate the cave system, practicing autonomous diving without assistance. It's important to note that John wore a very large rebreather, making it quite challenging to explore the cave further. The cave presented risks due to its narrow and shallow passages, which could potentially damage equipment in emergencies and impede a swift return. The night before, Valentin and Charles had warned John that his large rebreather might not fit through some of the narrower parts of the cave system. Unfortunately, John didn't take their advice into account. Additionally, it's crucial to remember that John suffered a broken back in a motorcycle accident in 1998, adding an extra layer of challenge to his underwater explorations. Navigating the cave entrance, a mere 11 feet deep, John proceeded with caution, ensuring he wouldn't get stuck in the narrow passage. Approximately 43 feet in, he reached the upper ledge of the shaft, known as S3, marking the beginning of his descent into the depths. As John descended into S3, the environment changed. The water grew darker and colder, prompting him to rely on his flashlight to illuminate the cave. Carefully navigating the almost vertical shaft, John continued exploring the phreatic cave passage. Recognizing the critical nature of his actions, he knew that the slightest mistake could lead to dangerous consequences. As John descended further, the slope got steeper, eventually reaching the bottom of the shaft at 1,056 feet. At this point, he noticed a sizable obstruction hole covered with blocky material. To the right of the shaft floor, there was a narrow crevice leading to an uphill cave passage. This area had a lot of sediment, creating strong turbidity in the water, making it challenging to see clearly. Despite the potentially dangerous conditions, John stayed focused and alert, fully aware of the risks he was facing. While navigating this hazardous environment, he found inspiration in the beauty of the underwater world, which fueled his determination to continue the exploration. While swimming through the cave, John spotted a passage on the left that extended into a running passage on the valley side. This narrow and demanding passage had undergone a slight enlargement in 2002 for safety purposes. Drawing on his training and experience, John navigated through the passage with meticulous care, keeping a close eye on his depth gauge and air supply. The passage started just below the known shaft bottom of the S3 section, but a collapse had buried the initial, or 98 feet. Despite these obstacles, John successfully emerged on the other side, experiencing a mix of relief and accomplishment. Covering about 1,821 feet, John encountered the first significant fold zone in the cave. Progressing through the steeply sloping passage, he observed accumulations of gravel banks that posed challenges to further diving. Despite these obstacles, John felt content with the progress he had made. As his air supply neared its limit, he made a responsible decision to turn back. Adhering to the rule of thirds, a crucial safety guideline in cave diving, John ensured that he had ample air remaining for a safe return journey to the surface. Before swimming back, John took a moment to reflect on the breathtaking beauty and intriguing mysteries that the underwater cave system presented. Grateful for the chance to witness such wonders, he realized that this dive would stay with him as a lifelong memory. As he retraced his earlier path, John carefully navigated the obstacles he had encountered. Reaching the end of the S2 section, he faced a series of tight obstructions created by large boulders. Navigating this part demanded skill and careful attention to prevent getting stuck or dislodging rocks. It was another challenge that John approached. As John first entered the cave, he encountered challenges navigating the narrow passages, primarily due to the size of his large rebreather, which made it cumbersome. In an effort to make his way through more easily, he made the unfortunate choice to take off the rebreather temporarily. Negotiating the thigh gap, he successfully maneuvered through and relied on an alternative breathing source from another bottle. However, the real setback unfolded when John attempted to reattach his rebreather. The tight passages, coupled with lingering effects of his back injury from 1998, made it impossible for him to secure the rebreather back in place. Facing limited options, John made the choice to resurface while clutching the bottle under his arm. However, as he ascended, a sudden mishap occurred. The bottle became detached from the rubber hose connected to his mouthpiece. This left him without an air supply, and he was still at a significant distance from the cave entrance. In a frantic effort to retrieve the lost bottle, John searched desperately, but was unsuccessful. The severe depletion of oxygen took its toll, causing him to lose consciousness in a dire situation where every breath mattered. While Valentin and Charles, John's diving companions, had returned to the cave entrance, concerns started to grow about John's whereabouts. Fearing for his safety, they decided to call for emergency services and made the difficult choice to re-enter the cave to search for him. Their worst fears became a harsh reality when they discovered John's lifeless body trapped under a ledge, approximately 85 feet down the main shaft of the cave. It was a devastating moment as they brought his body to the surface, where firefighters attempted to resuscitate him. Despite their efforts, it was tragically too late. John, at the tender age of 32, had met an untimely demise in the depths of the cave. This heartbreaking incident served as a grave reminder of the unforeseeable risks involved in underwater exploration. The diving community mourned the loss of a passionate explorer. A civil engineer who loved exploring visited the Dorothea Quarry with a group of 5 divers with hopes of exploring the depths of the dark waters. However, while diving, he experienced an equipment failure that affected his ascent. Would help come in time. Dorothea Quarry, located in the Nanthley Valley in North Wales, is an abandoned slate quarry with a rich history. Stretching across a considerable expanse near the village of Tollisarn, it features 3 expansive lakes formed by flooding over time. Nestled at the base of the broad Nanthley Valley, this quarry comprises 6 pits, the deepest plunging to a remarkable 348 feet from the surface. The quarry's operational history dates back to the early 1820s, although there were pre-existing smaller workings in the vicinity. Around 1829, William Turner assumed a lease for the quarry and named it Clothfa Turner. Dorothea Quarry is like a big underwater maze with tunnels that go through rocks and hills. Some of these tunnels are easy to get into, and if you start near the car park, there's a part of the water that's not too deep, making it good for swimming around while finishing a dive. In the summer, there's a problem with algae near the top of the water, but if you dive deeper, around 49 feet, it gets much clearer. People started diving here after the quarrying work stopped in 1970. Even though there are no official facilities for divers and diving is not allowed. The quarry has become famous for its deep waters, but it also brings some dangers. Because there are no rules, some divers may think they are better than they actually are. And sadly, between 1994 and 2004, 21 divers lost their lives in the quarry. Jason Dean was a vibrant 31-year-old civil engineer based in Liverpool who resided on Earlston Road, Wallasey. Jason was more than just a professional. He was known for his sharp thinking and contagious enthusiasm. As a civil engineer, he poured his passion into designing structures that would withstand the test of time. But Jason wasn't your typical engineer. He was a free spirit, always on the lookout for new adventures. His wanderlust took him to different corners of the world. In Malawi, West Africa, he embraced the thrill of diving, and in 1998 he achieved a remarkable feat by conquering the heights of Mount Kilimanjaro. Beyond personal accomplishment, this ascent served a noble purpose, contributing to the Roy Castle lung cancer appeal. Jason was married to Haley, and together they formed a warm and tranquil couple who shared a common love for diving. The two were not just life partners, but also fellow enthusiasts in the underwater world. Jason's adventurous side took them on thrilling journeys, like conquering Pador Peak in the Himalayas back in 2002. Yet Jason's appetite for challenges didn't stop there. His next big venture was to explore the mysterious depths of the Dorothea Quarry. Little did he know that this decision would unfold into one of the most demanding and risky experiences of his entire life. On Saturday, March 21, 2004, Jason ventured into the realms of Dorothea Quarry. He joined a crew of 5 divers affiliated with the WHL. Originally, their idea was to explore the Welsh coast of Anglia, but Mother Nature had different plans, throwing bad weather their way. Undeterred, Jason shared with fellow divers at the quarry that their new plan involved a dive reaching depths of about 98 to 115 feet. Upon arriving at the quarry, the group split into 2. Jason teamed up with his close friend Matthew McNeil from Coniston Avenue for their intended underwater journey into the quarry's depths. Meanwhile, the remaining 3 divers headed to a different part of the quarry. Diving into the depths of Dorothea Quarry on that Saturday turned out to be tougher than Jason anticipated. Despite his past adventures, this dive became one of the trickiest and riskiest experiences he'd ever faced. As he and his friend Matthew descended into the underwater maze, they were careful to communicate, making sure their gear and safety were on point. Around halfway down, at about 45 feet deep, things took an unexpected turn. Jason signaled that he needed to go back up, hinting that something might be wrong with his equipment. Concerned for Jason's safety, both friends decided to turn around and start heading back up. The underwater journey, which initially promised exploration and adventure, has now become a challenging test of their skills and decision-making. The murky waters of the quarry held unforeseen obstacles, turning what was supposed to be a routine dive into a more complicated and risky ordeal. As they started going back up, Jason faced trouble keeping himself afloat. Suddenly, without any warning, he began sinking rapidly. In the murky waters of the quarry, talking became really hard, making it tough for Matthew to figure out what was wrong. During their decompression stop, which is like a safety pause during the ascent, Jason struggled with staying buoyant. Out of nowhere, he started sinking fast. Matthew, desperately trying to help, realized Jason was dealing with problems with his equipment. Despite Matthew's efforts to assist, Jason's situation got worse. Panicking, he tried to use a spare regulator to fix things, but it didn't work, putting both divers in a dangerous and scary situation. Seeing Jason in distress, Matthew tried to help by inflating his own jacket to assist with buoyancy, but panic had taken hold of Jason, and despite Matthew's best efforts, they got separated underwater. It was a scary moment. Jason was breathing rapidly, and his eyes were filled with panic. Matthew hurriedly descended to catch up with Jason, who was sinking fast, but it was already too late. Jason was going down quicker than Matthew could swim, and trying to reach him would have put Matthew's own life at risk. Feeling helpless, Matthew emerged from the water to kickstart the rescue efforts. Meanwhile, diving instructor Stuart Tattersall, who was gearing up for a dive, heard the commotion. Spotting Matthew waving his arms and yelling, Stuart rushed over and assisted him out of the water. Matthew explained that the troubles began around 45 feet below the surface, prompting him to swiftly ascend. Stuart, recognizing the seriousness of the situation, got Matthew on oxygen while they awaited the arrival of an ambulance. The atmosphere was tense as the rescue efforts unfolded. The emergency response swung into action around 11:30 a.m. on that fateful Saturday. North Wales police divers were quick to the scene, deploying advanced robots equipped with high-tech capabilities to search the depths for Jason, especially after an initial attempt failed to locate him. Using these robotic submarines, the North Wales police successfully found Jason's body at a depth of approximately 131 feet. The discovery was made at 4:30 p.m. on the same day. Jason was found floating on a ledge with his regulator out of his mouth. A post-mortem examination, scheduled for that very day, confirmed drowning caused by equipment failure as the reason behind Jason's tragic death. Sadly, Jason became the 7th person to lose their life at the quarry that year, sparking local calls for stricter controls and safety measures to prevent further tragedies. Expressing concern about a troubling trend, North West Wales coroner Dewey Pritchard-Jones highlighted the disturbing pattern of divers losing their lives in lakes and the sea while still wearing their weight belts. In a verdict of accidental death for Jason, he remarked, "This has become a common characteristic in recent deaths and is causing some concern. Why are divers reluctant to dump their weight belts to allow them to surface when they get into difficulties? If Mr. Dean had dumped his weight belt at the shallow depth when he got into difficulties, he might have survived." As of 2004, Jason became the 21st person to lose their life while diving in the quarry over the past decade. This unfortunate statistic prompted reflections on the need for enhanced safety measures and awareness to prevent further tragedies in the underwater exploration community. The incident stayed with Matthew, making him feel something called survivor's guilt, a heavy, lingering feeling. He couldn't help but wonder why Jason didn't take off his weight belt, a small thing that might have saved him. Despite the sadness, Matthew found some comfort in remembering the good times he shared with his adventurous friend. Even though it hurt, Matthew decided he wanted to keep exploring, pushing himself just like Jason would have wanted. He thought it was important to always remember how risky adventures can be. Matthew hoped to turn the sadness into a tribute by carrying on Jason's love for exploration, while reminding others to be careful and aware of the dangers that come with thrilling experiences. A veteran diver of 20 years who had certified 300 students took on a student on a specialty course dive in the deep waters of Stony Cove. However, right in the deep waters, the student started having problems with his buoyancy, which was the beginning of a horrible incident about to unfold. Stony Cove is a distinctive diving hub in the United Kingdom, located in landlocked Leicestershire. The uniqueness of this diving destination lies in its natural freshwater springs, which give the Stony Cove diving lake crystal clear waters, inviting divers to experience the wonders beneath the surface. Remarkably, Stony Cove is the only location worldwide where underwater archaeologists and divers can immerse themselves in exploring the captivating remains of a genuine Elizabethan shipwreck, all within an inland setting. Diving into the depths of Stony Cove is not limited to only seasoned professionals. It also welcomes almost anyone fascinated by the idea of scuba diving. For those discovering interest, Stony Cove offers the opportunity to progress and acquire the essential skills needed to transform into a certified underwater explorer or even a professional diver. Today, under the guidance of seasoned experts, people ranging from beginners to seasoned divers can embark on explorations in the 115-foot deep lake. At the age of 40, Richard Stansfield from Northampton distinguished himself as an electrician, celebrated for his meticulous approach to work and his passion for innovative problem-solving. In addition to his professional engagement, Richard was renowned for his love for diving, a passion that he wholeheartedly pursued during weekends. Diving into the depths of Stony Cove became a routine for him. Holding an advanced open water certification, he had the expertise to navigate and explore the more challenging and intricate sections of this underwater body. Impressively, Richard had accomplished a total of 30 dives. The other person in this story is dive instructor Nigel Craig. Nigel is not just a dive instructor, he's also a builder and a seasoned diver with 20 years of experience. His interest in diving began when he was just a boy,
But it wasn't until he had his own family that he decided to take potty training courses. At first, he learned the ropes of diving abroad, and later, he continued honing his passion at Stony Cove. Nigel started his diving journey at Stony Cove in 1996. His weekly routine included attending pool sessions and spending Saturdays at the Dive Northampton shop. Sundays were reserved for diving adventures. Over the years, he steadily progressed through his training, and in 2013, he achieved the prestigious title of Potty Master Instructor. At the time of the incident we're about to delve into, Nigel had successfully certified 300 students and played a crucial role in helping many others earn their diving certifications. It's worth mentioning that he was a frequent instructor for the Deep Diver course at the same spot in Stony Cove where our story unfolds. On Sunday, July 24, 2016, dive instructor Nigel Craig kicked off a potty deep specialty course dive for Richard Stansfield. This particular dive was the second part of the potty deep specialty course, and Richard had already successfully completed the first dive as part of his advanced open water program. The purpose of this course is to teach divers important things about deep sea exploration. They learn about how pressure increases as they go deeper, leading to effects like using up more air and having to spend less time underwater. Divers also discover how a phenomenon called narcosis can impact their judgment underwater. Additionally, they understand the significance of safety stops to reduce the risk of decompression sickness. During this dive, the participants are allowed to go as deep as 131 feet. Before reaching the maximum depth, they need to navigate a short distance underwater. When it's time to return to the surface, they make a controlled ascent using either gauges or a dive computer to ensure a safe rate of ascent. The course standards dictate a mandatory 3-minute safety stop at 16 feet before emerging from the water. This comprehensive training helps divers like Richard gain a deeper understanding of the challenges and safety measures associated with exploring the depths of the underwater world. On that particular day, Richard was the sole student under Nigel's guidance, and accompanying them was dive master Carol Tokarczyk, someone Richard had dived with before. Nigel and Carol were no strangers, having worked together on multiple occasions. The trio gathered at the van, where Nigel took the time to go over the course knowledge reviews with Richard. Before gearing up for the dive, Nigel conducted a thorough dive briefing, ensuring everyone was on the same page. Nigel and Carol, both equipped with twin sets, showcased their gear to Richard, pointing out the differences compared to a single-cylinder setup. To ensure safety, they performed a complete potty buddy check, ensuring that all equipment was in order. After the briefing and safety check, the team swam approximately 328 feet to a descent line marked the Hydro Box, a metal structure submerged 115 feet deep. This structure, originally used for commercial diver training, served as a unique underwater landmark for recreational instructors like Nigel and his team during deep dives. The team paused at the marker buoy to give Richard, who was a bit out of breath from the swim, some time to catch his breath. It took about 10 minutes to reach the deepest part of the dive, which was around 105 feet. Richard had some trouble equalizing, a process to balance pressure in the ears, making it a bit slower. Once they reached the bottom, Nigel checked the air supply. Richard signaled that he started with 250 bars in his 12-liter cylinder and now had 150 bars left. Nigel and Carol, who used 12-liter twin sets, had plenty of air for themselves, and extra in case someone needed it. During the navigation exercise, Richard had a bit of trouble with his buoyancy, meaning he had difficulty staying at the right depth. Nigel decided to pause the exercise and have Richard try it again, which he successfully did. At this point, Nigel checked the air again and got a signal that there were 60 bars left. Nigel was surprised because Richard's air supply was much lower than expected, given the earlier check. To be safe, he decided to end the dive and start going back up. Nigel told Carol to shine his torch on Richard's gauge and keep an eye on his air as they ascended using the shot line. During the ascent, Richard's computer alarmed that his air was low. Nigel saw this and decided it was time for Richard and Carol to share air. Carol gave Richard his regulator, switched to a spare one, and everything went smoothly. However, around 59 feet deep, Richard signaled that he was out of air, even though there was still some air left in his tank. Nigel was puzzled. He checked the regulators, purged them, and everything seemed fine. Nigel, reassuring Richard with hand signals, decided to let him breathe from his own tank. Despite Nigel knowing he had enough air and that his regulator was working fine, Richard signaled once again that he was out of air. Nigel was confused and did the standard calming signals, checking everything again, got confirmation that all was well, and continued the ascent. As they neared the depth for the safety stop, Nigel, considering that Richard had enough air and seemed calm, decided to stick to the planned safety stop, which is a necessary part of the course and standard for diving. However, 2 minutes into the safety stop, Richard suddenly seemed panicky and tried to swim to the surface in a dangerous way. Nigel quickly reached out to stop him from making an unsafe ascent, but when Nigel looked into Richard's eyes, he saw something alarming. They looked glazed and lifeless, and Richard's regulator was slipping from his mouth. Nigel acted fast, putting the regulator back in and purging it, realizing that they needed to make an emergency ascent. Once at the surface, Nigel inflated Richard's buoyancy control device and started giving him rescue breaths. They called for help, and a rescue boat from Stony Cove responded. Richard, now unconscious, was taken to the shore by the rescue boat. Paramedics were there to resuscitate him, and he was then rushed to Glenfield Hospital in an ambulance. Unfortunately, despite the efforts of the medical team, Richard was pronounced dead about 5 hours later. After the incident, Craig spoke with police and later attended a voluntary interview in 2017 to clarify details. He was never treated as a suspect. Craig and his wife Della tried to move on with their lives as best they could. Then in September 2020, more than 4 years after the tragic events of July 2016, Craig received a letter saying that he would be prosecuted for gross negligence manslaughter. Surprisingly, Carol did not face any charges. This marked the beginning of a difficult and distressing period in Craig's life. During the prosecution, it was highlighted that Richard's air supply was misreported, and Nigel was implicated for not directly monitoring his students' computer readings. The case was further complicated by Richard's health conditions, including high blood pressure and traces of substances in his system. The main argument from the prosecution was that Nigel had kept Richard underwater, prioritizing a 3-minute safety stop over preventing drowning. They claimed that the safety stop wasn't necessary and that Nigel should have surfaced with a diver who was out of air. The defense responded to these accusations by bringing attention to the immersion pulmonary edema, IPO, a condition where cold water causes fluid to build up in the lungs. Dr. Wilmhurst, an expert, explained to the jury that people with high blood pressure were more likely to experience an IPO. It was revealed that Richard had hypertension, a condition he didn't mention on the medical questionnaire he filled out with Dive Northampton. The postmortem examination also showed that he had cocaine in his system. While the drug levels would have been higher during the dive, it wasn't clear how it might have affected Richard given the pressure underwater and considering his hypertension. These factors could have played a role. The defense had a strong case against the prosecution, especially with the expertise of Kevin Gurr, a technical, military, and cave diving instructor. Kevin highlighted in his report that the dive team had more than enough emergency air supply, and using it was a smart way to reduce risks. He also mentioned that since the diver was breathing and seemed calm during the air-sharing ascent, Nigel might have thought the safety stop was a good idea. After 2 days of thinking, the jury couldn't come to a decision. Surprisingly, the prosecution chose not to have a retrial, and the judge declared Nigel not guilty. However, even though the legal battle was over, the damage had already been done to Nigel and his wife Della. Nigel, who worked as a builder, lost his only way of earning money because he couldn't handle working during the month-long trial. He, along with his wife Della and their 2 kids, went through a tough time, not knowing if Nigel would end up in jail. Nigel mentioned that he would never teach again, and even thinking about diving, even just snorkeling, messes with his head, especially after what happened. Not only is diving dangerous, but deep diving is at an extreme level. A diver from Florida went on a deep dive in Santorini to break his personal record. Unbeknownst to him, the underwater world had another plan, and he blacked out in the deep. Would he make it out alive? Santorini, found in Greece, is the result of a massive volcanic explosion, one of the biggest ever. It used to be one giant island, but the explosion broke it apart, creating a really deep hole called a caldera that goes down 1,181 feet. This caldera is sort of surrounded by the islands of Santorini, Dorothea, and a small one called Aspronisi. People love Santorini for how pretty it looks above water, but under the sea it's just as cool because of the volcano. If you're into diving, Santorini is awesome. You can check out the famous caldera, see old shipwrecks, and explore some really cool caves. It's a unique and exciting experience for all levels of divers. The dive spots in Santorini are still in good shape because regular scuba diving there only started about 10 years ago. Santorini is renowned for having some of the best diving experiences in the Mediterranean, mainly because of the incredibly clear waters and untouched underwater scenery that remains pristine throughout the year. The popular dive sites there not only showcase the natural beauty, but also unveil the volcanic history of the area. Heading to the south coast provides divers with an amazing opportunity to explore breathtaking caves beneath the water's surface. On the other hand, diving in the central caldera is an adrenaline-pumping adventure, offering the chance to discover fascinating shipwrecks and navigate along thrilling underwater walls. Santorini's appeal as a holiday destination extends year-round, thanks to its warm temperatures and abundant sunshine. The availability of scuba diving throughout the year is made possible by the crystal-clear waters of the Aegean Sea surrounding the island. However, during the winter months, it's advisable to wear a thicker wetsuit to ensure warmth while enjoying the underwater wonders Santorini has to offer. Whether you're a seasoned diver or just starting, Santorini provides an unforgettable and accessible diving experience for enthusiasts of all levels. Joe Russell, a Florida native, was born in 1973 and found his passion for diving at the tender age of 12. His journey into the underwater realm began when a coach from his school's swimming team suggested scuba lessons, recognizing Joe's potential. By the time he turned 15, Joe had already become a certified scuba diver, kicking off a lifelong love affair with the deep blue. Throughout his teenage years, Joe explored the underwater wonders, not only around Florida, but also during family vacations. His fascination with the marine world led him to pursue a bachelor's degree in biology, immersing himself in the scientific understanding of life. Building on this foundation, he delved even deeper into his passion, earning a master's degree in marine biology just 2 years later. Joe's commitment to the underwater realm went beyond academics. His extensive personal collection of artifacts stands as a testament to his deep-rooted affection for the oceanic environment. Whether it was shells, corals, or other marine treasures, Joe cherished these artifacts as tangible reminders of his exploration and connection with the fascinating underwater world. He had this mindset that nothing was too hard to accomplish, and he was always determined to succeed. During his college days, he crossed paths with Max Stewart, and they hit it off immediately, becoming best friends. Both Joe and Max were super into diving, and they were well known in their community for their passion for exploring the underwater world. One summer morning near the stunning Greek island of Santorini, Joe geared up for his second attempt at deep diving, aiming to beat his personal records and capture some memorable underwater moments with his camera. Having completed his first deep dive the year before, he was determined to make this experience even more remarkable. Joe's close friend Max was no stranger to deep diving,
and took on the role of preparing Joe for this record-breaking adventure. The duo dedicated weeks to intense physical training, gearing up for the challenges that lay beneath the waves. Despite Joe's 6-month hiatus from diving and recent recovery from high blood pressure, they faced the situation head-on. Recognizing the need to overcome Joe's period of rustiness, they shifted focus to psychological and dietary enhancements. Positive diving affirmations became a daily ritual, boosting Joe's mental readiness for the upcoming dive. Additionally, they paid careful attention to Joe's diet, ensuring he received the necessary nutrients to support his overall well-being. Hydration was a key concern, especially given Joe's blood pressure condition. Max and Joe worked together to ensure that Joe stayed adequately hydrated, a crucial aspect of maintaining health during a challenging deep dive. As the day of the dive got closer, Max couldn't contain his excitement. He was ready and eager to help his friend Joe tackle the big challenge of deep diving. On the other hand, Joe felt a bit nervous on the morning of the dive. However, he decided to go ahead with it, thinking it was just the usual jitters people feel before a dive. The two buddies gathered all their diving gear, things like computers, tanks, masks, and suits, and hopped into their ride, heading to the dive spot. Along the way, they picked up 2 more divers who would assist as support divers on the surface. Once they reached the dive spot, there was a sense of anticipation in the air. An hour before the dive, Joe and Max, along with their 2 support divers, started putting on their gear. Before Joe and Max took the plunge into the water, they kicked things off with a 50-minute warm-up. This helped get Joe's body all set for the challenging dive they were about to undertake. Max kept a close eye on Joe, making sure he was emotionally ready for the big adventure. They did exercises like pack stretches and facial immersion, all while keeping up communication and staying mentally focused. As the countdown to the official dive began, Joe, who would be the only one diving, put on his diving mask and started his descent into the underwater world. Max believed that Joe was on the verge of achieving what they had practiced and prepared for so intensely. Following the plan, Joe started his dive adventure. He descended using an anchor line with marker slates attached every 33 feet. Joe could sign his name on these slates, certifying the depth he reached. To keep his friend Max on the surface in the loop, Joe periodically tugged on a safety line attached to his weight belt, indicating he was okay. Things were going smoothly as Joe surpassed his earlier record of 165 feet. His ambitious target was to reach 210 feet. The first few minutes of the dive were uneventful, filled with excitement as he pushed past his own limits. However, after a few minutes at an impressive depth of 310 feet, Joe suddenly stopped signaling, creating a moment of suspense and concern among his friends on the surface. Feeling a sense of unease, Max noticed something wasn't right. He quickly instructed the support divers on the surface to pull Joe up. Acting swiftly, Max dove down to meet Joe at a depth of 230 feet. To his shock, he found Joe unconscious, with his mouthpiece hanging on his chest. Max wasted no time and brought Joe to the surface. Desperate to help their friend, they continued their attempts to resuscitate Joe for hours. Realizing the severity of the situation, they called for an ambulance, which rushed him to the hospital. Unfortunately, despite their efforts, Joe couldn't be revived and was declared dead upon arrival. The sudden turn of events left Max and the others in shock, grappling with the loss of their friend in the midst of what was meant to be an exciting underwater adventure. After an autopsy was conducted, the results pointed to nitrogen narcosis or oxygen toxicity as the factors that led Joe to lose his mouthpiece and drown. The slate Joe signed at 310 feet confirmed his depth record. Typically, divers using compressed air are advised to stay within 148 feet due to the narcotic effects of nitrogen and the toxic action of oxygen at higher pressures. Medical and diving experts reviewing Joe's case concluded that 300 feet was considered the absolute maximum depth for a diver using compressed air. Beyond this depth, the risk of nitrogen narcosis and oxygen toxicity significantly increase.
Interestingly, the substitution of oxygen-helium for compressed air has allowed divers to reach depths as great as 1,969 feet without encountering incidents, showcasing advancements in diving technology and safety measures. Joe's tragic incident underscored the importance of understanding and respecting the limits of traditional compressed air diving to ensure the safety of underwater explorers. We would like to thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed watching, take a dive on the like and subscribe buttons and hit the bell icon so you get notified when we come back with another.